committee as a subcommittee, and we're going to stop as soon as we have another senator present in order to be able to make a quorum. But we are going to start today with House Bill 999. Representative Fowler, when you're ready, please come forward and introduce your bill. Representative, I hate to do this to you. I'm going to actually go ahead and call us into order as a real committee because now we have a quorum and it'll just be easier than doing it later. I'd like to call to order the Committee on Government Efficiency. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Coleman,
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Bean,
Here.
Brown, Carter, Lewis, Williams.
With 4 members present, we do have a quorum. And I now make a motion that we hear House Bill 999. Do I have a second? So moved. We're now moving into the hearing. House Bill 999. Representative, please begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Hudson, and members of the Government Efficiency Committee. My name is Ron Fowler. I represent House District 31. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to thank Chairwoman Coleman for scheduling this hearing. I also want to thank Vice Chair Hudson and the members of the committee for your time and consideration of this legislation. Today, counties can ignore state tax commission orders without consequence. With House Committee substitute for House Bill 999, if the state tax commission issues an order to reduce property assessments and the county does not comply, this bill gives the state tax commission a mechanism for issuing consequences. The consequence, in short, is the Department of Revenue withholds county sales and use tax until the county complies with the state tax commission order. This bill, in short, is a tool to enforce state tax commission orders, and I welcome any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback the committee may have.
Thank you, Representative, for being here. Appreciate the legislation you're presenting. I just want to make sure and clarify something. So this, your legislation, I assume the intent is to make sure that if the State Tax Commission requires that assessments be lowered,
Correct.
then the county has to do that or face consequences.
Yes.
What if the State Tax Commission requires assessments increase?
So that was a good, excellent question. We certainly discussed that. And there are some situations where that could arise. The bill does not give them that authority. I think that there's some concerns from various House representatives that issuing a consequence to make people raise assessments just in general wouldn't be favored that much
Right.
at this time.
I wouldn't favor that either.
Yeah.
I just
So-
want
so
it for
we-
the record.
And I know in review, it certainly got that, and so it's just to reduce if they're excessively high, and the commission issues one to say reduce. That's all this one works towards.
Okay, so this is just to make sure that reductions
Yes.
will occur when STC says they should.
Yes, and
Okay.
and a lot of this was stemmed from Jackson County in the 2022, 2023 assessments, and a lot of things have played out. It's still in the courts, but that's largely. We saw that the county did not comply and need a mechanism for enforcement.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a brief question for you. One of the concerns that we have heard a number of senators have reacted to is 74 counties have received memos of understanding from the Tax Commission requiring them to raise their taxes, in some cases really significantly, with very little feedback and certainly a lack of information from the Tax Commission about what those assessments are, how they're making those determinations, how it's being utilized across the state. Are you open to addressing that concern in addition to your bill about adding teeth to follow Tax Commission requirements?
So I do not have a good handle on how that would be
Well, we haven't
structured.
drafted anything yet, so
Yeah.
you'd have certainly be part of the conversation as we were working through that.
Yes, I understand that through talking with the State Tax Commission liaison that is a concern. But again, I don't know how to structure that to where it would work. And I take your leadership and look forward to it, yeah.
Thank you, Representative. Any further questions for the representative? Seeing none, first witness in support, please come forward. Anyone here in favor? Seeing none, anyone here in opposition? Assessor,
Lisa Panett, Armorvine. We are opposed to this because we're taking this authority and control away from the elected assessors, and we're putting it in an unelected body. And in reference to what the representative just said, it says here clearly that the state tax commission shall equalize the valuation, and it shall add to the valuation of each class of each county which it believes to be valued below its real value, and then it adds to that it will be between 80 and 100% of the market value. So we are talking about increases in here. I mean, it's just, you just have to read it. I mean, talks about increasing.
any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next witness in opposition, please come forward. Welcome from Jefferson County, Mr. Assessor.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Bob Boyer. I'm the Jefferson County Assessor. I'm also the President of the Missouri State Assessors Association. Just want to speak in opposition today on House Bill 999 as it currently is passed in the House. You know, the intent of this bill is to prevent like a large property tax increase on the taxpayers of a county, similar to what happened in Jackson County during their 2023 reassessment. But in that case, the assessed values were raised without a tax levy rollback by the different taxing districts, especially the school district. This caused residential taxpayers to feel the full burden of the reassessment increase. The Missouri Constitution, under the Hancock Amendment, has a rollback provision which is supposed to be enforced that requires these districts to roll their levy back to either 5% or consumer price index, whatever is lower. That just didn't happen in this case in Jackson County, and to be honest, it's not happening throughout the state with these different taxing districts. The order that the State Tax Commission issued to Jackson County back in 2024 had nothing to do with the size of the assessed valuation increase. In one of our executive board meetings, they testified to that. They said they're fine with the 30% median increase. What it had to do with was the physical inspection requirement in state statute. They felt that Jackson County didn't do a physical inspection on properties 15% or over an increase. That's being litigated in the courts. Jackson County has a different story. STC has one story. The courts will decide who's right and wrong. And but I want to point out that the Jackson County case really had nothing to do with the value increase. So this bill intends to solve the wrong problem. The problem with the property tax system right now is that the rollback provision in the Hancock Amendment is not being enforced. This bill gives the STC some unprecedented authority without providing the necessary checks on the authority. So this bill assumes that the STC commissioners can withhold voter-approved sales tax, which is beyond their constitutional authority in our opinion. That the decisions made by the STC to make a determination of compliance are guided by Missouri statutes and administrative rules. And unfortunately, they're not. And that the current mass appraisal computer programs used to determine assessed valuation meet a statutory or administrative rule guideline. Unfortunately, none of those exist. Currently, Senator, there's 77, I just got a list today, there's 77 counties that have received orders and for residential, and 9 have received orders for commercial. The counties that are receiving these, anywhere from 14.99%. I got one from Pulaski County today. It's at 20% of an increase being mandated. And also the wording of it, both on land and in improvements. And Senator Hudson, you see what I'm talking about. It could be a much larger increase, depending upon how that's brought about. So, without a rollback provision, the Hancock Amendment being applied correctly, this same issue that happened in Jackson County is going to happen to these 77 other counties here in Missouri. So I would employ the committee to look at this bill, make some changes, and really address the real problem, that's the tax levy rollback under the Hancock Amendment.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Senator?
That's fine. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. I want to make sure that I understand you correctly. So, when we heard from the previous witness that that witness believes that this particular piece of legislation would mandate increases as well as decreases, is that your opinion?
Well, again, I'm not an attorney, but I believe the bill right now talks about decreases. The problem is giving the STC the authority and power to override an elected county assessor who is the best person in their county or their jurisdiction to decide what the market is doing for real estate values. And then there's an appeal process with the Board of Equalization, which is a completely separate county board, and they make a determination on an individual appeal basis. And the STC does that as well. So to make a blanket order without an appeal is problematic. So yeah, I mean, I guess it could be interpreted, depending upon how the STC issues these orders, that there could be an increase. I'm not sure. But I mean, it's definitely a concern for county assessors throughout the state. Because you got to understand, too, is the market in 2 years hasn't grown 15 to 20% in most places, especially the rural counties in Missouri. I talk to a number of assessors weekly, and they're very concerned because, you know, their properties aren't increasing like Pulaski County for 20%. So that burden has to be passed on to somebody, and it's typically the residential taxpayer.
Did I understand you correctly that there are over 70 counties that are right now that the STC, they're out of tolerance, basically?
Yeah, so the STC issued 77 for residential, out of tolerance for residential ratio studies, and there's 9 for commercial.
9 for commercial. Okay, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, and I totally understand if you don't know the answer to this question, but I wonder if there are any of those that STC is saying you need to lower values. I know.
I don't know.
I was an assessor for 9 years, and they never tried to. If they were telling me I need to do something, they were trying to get me to raise something. But I guess that case could be different in other counties, maybe.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Carter.
I really appreciate the opportunity to hear this. This is something that my assessor has called me multiple times about. We are one of those 77 counties that have received a letter, and they feel completely out of control when it comes to, like, they have no control as an elected official to be able to have that conversation at a local level. And so it's a deep concern, so I appreciate your feedback. And
Yeah, thank you, Senator. So one of the issues, too, is their funding for parcel reimbursement through the state is tied to compliance with the STC. So without that funding, they can't hire staff to actually do appraisals in the field. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You cut the funding, and then they can't do their job anyway, so they'll never get back into compliance because they can't get the boots on the ground to do it. So that's definitely, I've heard that concern from a number of assessors in the rural counties.
thank you.
Really quickly, I have another follow-up question. Do you think that there's a lack of an ability to enforce an assessor to do the right thing if there is a decrease that's needed? I think, Jackson County's experience is, frankly, a little bit different than most of the county's experiences, and they're desperately trying to get relief for their people, and they can't figure out how to get the tax commission to do, or the local assessor to do the right thing to try to drop those rates. Whereas for most of the state, it's the opposite problem, where they're demanding increases and they're not doing anything to decrease those, or to at least put a cap on those increases, other than the 15% that's required. So are you hearing that from your assessors, or have you been in contact with, kind of conversations of saying, gosh, that's probably a bad actor of an assessor, that's the tail's wagging the dog on that one?
I can speak for myself, Senator, that I would never have done an increase like that in Jefferson County, because you can't really look at our job in a vacuum. I know that we're charged with appraising real estate values based on market value, but at the same time, we know that there's consequences to our actions, right? And what happened in Jackson County kind of upset the apple cart, so to speak, with the property tax system. On the flip side of it, ordering all these other counties where the market isn't that high to then raise their values is upsetting the apple cart as well. So we really have to be careful about what our job is as assessors, and make sure that we're valuing property the right way, because we use mass appraisal standards. So if you were to go out and put your house in the market, the way they appraise your house is completely different than what we do. Now, we're under similar standards through what's called USPAP. There's a mass appraisal standard, just like a regular fee appraisal standard. But at the same time, we have to understand that a large increase is going to throw a wrench into all kinds of things, especially if the rollback provision isn't being applied. And that's why I kind of want to push the point at. If the rollback provision was applied, it didn't matter if that Jackson County raised them 30%, 40%, 50%. They would have to see either 5% or CPI, whichever was hot, or whichever was lower. I'm sorry. It's just simply not happening. For our county, Senator, for Jefferson County, there was 11 school districts that we have. Only one rolled their levy back in 2023 when I did a reassessment.
Who was that?
Hillsborough School District.
And the others didn't?
No. See so, you know, essentially, because there's 4 different levies with the schools, they can figure out that if they roll the operating levy back, but yet they have room in the debt service ceiling, then that could be bumped up to make up the difference. And what happens is that levy number stays the same, so you, the individual taxpayer, pays more.
Thank you for being here. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness in opposition? Anyone else here in opposition? Anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, that'll conclude our hearing on House Bill 999, and I'm going to turn the gavel over to our vice chair as we hear a bunch of my bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next up, we will hear Senate Bill 722, sponsored by Senator Coleman.
Give me just a second while I get all these files.
And you take your time. Just begin when you're ready.
Which one are we beginning with again?
722, unless you would like to
No,
hear another.
722 is great.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, representing Jefferson County, and I have a number of good government bills that I'm going to be presenting today, and a lot of it is just taking a close look at what we have been doing and really not been doing as a state. And so this first bill is related to abandoned funds. So when a senator or a representative has an idea for a new program or a new project for the state, a lot of times what they will do is they will enact a designated fund with a designated money coming in to be allocated. That way they know for sure that long after they leave because of term limits, the money will be there to fund the program that they have enacted. Unfortunately, we have 14 abandoned funds in the state. And what I mean by abandoned funds is that the programs that are addressed by those funds have become dormant. They're no longer active. And so we have funds ranging from $4,300 all the way up to $4.3 million in assets that are unable to be used for funding essential services through general revenue or to be funding tax cuts or returning that money to the taxpayer. And so what Senate Bill 722 does is it allows those funds to be swept and closed so that we're no longer collecting those revenues as dedicated funds for projects that are no longer happening. These projects have all not been taking place for more than 5 years. So we know this isn't just a blip that somebody just, 1 year didn't do anything with it, but for a prolonged period of time, nobody has enacted anything related to these funds. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, we'll take the first witness to testify in favor of Senate Bill 722. Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 722? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Do you have any closing remarks on that one, or do you want to move on?
No, thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Senator. Now we'll do Senate Bill 723, sponsored by Senator Coleman.
Okay.
Begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 723 is a tax credit bill. And it has 5 main components, and there's a really significant sub that's been distributed to the committee. And actually, that sub is going to have a couple of edits because there were things that I didn't catch where there were sunset. Oh, I apologize. You all did not receive the sub, but your offices will get them today from my office. I'm so sorry that that hasn't happened. So there are some some mistakes that are in that that sub because of some of the work that we did in Senate Bill 10, getting rid of some of the sunset provisions. I don't want one bill to be purporting to undo something that we just passed off of the floor this year. But the 5 kind of main components of Senate Bill 723 is there are a number of tax credits that are really there's poor oversight. The amount of money that we're spending on tax credits has continued to increase. There are expired tax credits that haven't been used. There are tax credits that don't have a cap. There are tax credits that have no annual reporting or repeal process. So Senate Bill, and just before I get started about the specifics, there's a chart that you all will get in your packet that I think is really important from Most Public Policy has a pamphlet that they've passed out. And I think that this is really telling. Back in 1998, there were $103 million in tax credits that were given from the state. In 2010, that number had raised to 522. And last fiscal year, it was $907 million. That is almost $1 billion. Our general revenue funded through our income tax is $3 billion. So almost 1/3 we are spending on off-book accounting. We don't even have a record of that money coming in because you're given a credit before we even count that. If we're going to be making significant changes to what I think we can all agree is a broken tax system, we have to address not just the income, but the outflow side of the model. So the 5 main components that are in this bill, the first one is an annual reporting and repeal process. So if there is a tax credit that hasn't been used for 3 years or more, there's a report that's provided to the General Assembly and an automatic repeal process to eliminate that tax credit that would have to be stopped, right? So instead of having to enact a repeal, you have to stop the repeal to try to make sure we're moving things forward. There are 8 tax credits that are being moved from the Department of Revenue to a more appropriate department. So for example, the surviving spouses of public safety officers tax credit is moving to the Department of Public Safety because right now 8 of our tax credits are being both administered and reviewed by the same group of people, and that's not good governance. We want to make sure we have oversight of the people who are both reviewing it and then also administering it. We want a little separation. 17 of the tax credits currently do not have sunset provisions. That number is going to change a little bit from my draft because I want to make sure that Senate Bill 10 isn't going to be countermanded. So anything that passed off the floor in Senate Bill 10, we're going to go ahead and pull those out. The others, we're going to put a sunset in so the General Assembly has an ability to look at and see, do they think that these things should continue, adding that automatic sunset until August of 2031. There's 10 tax credits that currently lack a maximum cap. This cap is set at the high, so when I'm implementing a cap, the way that we came up with that number is the highest amount redeemed from the most recent 3 years of data. And it's issued from a single point in time, and that's at issuance, not at redemption. So Jeannie from DOR, who lives and breathes tax credits, made that recommendation because that would be the highest possible number rather than a lower number, because we don't want to accidentally have it lower than where the General Assembly had authorized. There are 17 tax credits that have expired but are still on the books, and those 17 tax credits are being repealed. That list of expired tax credits to be removed has been checked and double-checked, not just by my office, but by the Department of Revenue. This is a really, really long bill. It's going to be almost 200 pages. And the reason why it's so long is because it takes a lot of pages to repeal legislation. It takes a lot of pages to repeal legislation. And so it ends up getting pretty thick. So if there's any questions that people have as we move through the sub, I'd be happy to answer through that questions. And Mr. Chairman, open to any questions on Senate Bill 723.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Lewis.
Good afternoon, Senator. As I was like looking at this stuff over the weekend, I thought, oh man, she has been busy. So thank you so much for all your work. And I can't even imagine the amount of hours you and your staff spent on diving into all this. And I, I definitely agree with kind of cleaning up the books and stuff. Just specifically a question about this one. I think the reporting is really good to, things that we haven't used for 3 months or for 3 years. But I think that, I know you talked about Senate Bill 10, but I think that I really care about the diaper bank tax credit.
Yes.
That was in 10, but should anything not happen, the only reason it didn't get, it's currently expired, it expired in December, and I think it was just because of the way the
Session's been the last 2 years.
yeah, so I don't think it's been used by the diaper bank. So I have a really particular interest of that. So what would your bill do to that should it not pass this year? Would it?
Would my bill affect the diaper tax credit if it didn't pass, but my bill did?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so my bill would make sure that we're including the diaper tax credit because it was in Senate Bill 10. So if my bill passed, but Senate Bill 10 for some reason didn't get signed, then your particular tax credit would be taken care of because we're going to include that in this provision.
Gotcha.
But I think a broader question would be, what if there's dysfunction for multiple years and something is automatically expiring? And that's part of why we set it at 3 years rather than 2, is because that's an entirely new General Assembly that would have had to fail to act for at least 1 year, right? So this is not just the 100 or the 98th General Assembly choosing not to do something. It would be also the 102nd or the 99th General Assembly, right? So we're making sure that with a whole reconstituted group of people, there's been an active decision to be inactive.
Okay. And then the automatic, you said there's a certain amount of bills that don't have sunsets on them, and you're going to put an automatic sunset. Is it like across the board, like a standard?
Right. It's putting the same on all of the tax credits that were not included in Senate Bill 10 that do not have a current sunset that we would be putting on it. Would be extending it into 2031. So a 6-year sunset.
And then, okay.
So it would have to have gone through basically 2 cycles where it could have been dropped. It didn't. It's being used. And then it would if somebody's not using it. So I think that's plenty of time for special interest groups to be advocating for its use, because all of our tax credits really are about special interest groups getting special provisions under the law. Many of them I support. Benevolent tax credits, for example, like I know you have a heart for. I want those. I think that they're good. But there's a recognition that off-book accounting makes it harder for us to be able to both fund essential services and reduce the overall tax burden for our taxpayers when we provide those off-book accounting.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Brown.
So just to clarify, this is only pertain to unused tax credit programs as far as the automatic sunset?
Right. So what it would be doing is it's saying it's creating a process for which if a tax credit is not being used for 3 years, then it would be able to be eligible to be dropped on as part of the functionality of it. So no tax credit that has been redeemed would be able to use that. And so actually, interestingly, if there's anybody who is cares a lot, we're going to stick with the diaper tax credit. All I would have to do to save that tax credit, if I cared a lot about it, was to claim that tax credit on my Missouri state income taxes, and then it would be able to be revived for the next year. So just one Missourian would have to use it in order for it to be able to continue to be valid.
And one more question, just more out of personal curiosity. How long did it take you to pull up the information on all these tax credits?
I had a lot of help.
Okay.
But it is a lot of information, and a big part of this deep dive, and you'll see from these bill numbers, I know it's maybe a little gauche to have all of your own bills heard in a committee the immediate minute that you can, but we didn't start working on any of this effort in my office until this committee was created and I started working on it. And before we started to do things, unlike the national DOGE effort, taking a dive and looking at what we could do here through public testimony, through public hearing, through drafting, through eliminating unnecessary programs seemed like the better, a really good Missouri show me way to do it. And yeah, these are low numbers or high numbers because it did take a while to get this work done and ready. And if I had been able to pre-file it, these would be much lower numbers.
Yep. I obviously haven't read through all 200 pages or so of the bill, but from what I'm seeing, this seems like a common sense step in the right direction at the very least.
Thank you, Senator.
All right. Seeing no further questions, we'll now move to testimony in favor. We're on Senate Bill 723. Anyone here to testify in favor of this legislation? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 723? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing remarks on that one?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, if it's agreeable to you, we'll move on to Senate Bill 729, sponsored by Senator Coleman. Begin when ready.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. This is Senate Bill 729, and it's attempting to do the same thing with tax credits and unused funds with unused committees and unused councils and unused blue ribbon commissions. One of the things that we like to do as a General Assembly when we don't know what to do is to convene a special group of people who somehow will magically know what the solution is. Sadly, that doesn't always happen. And so the Senate committee substitute has 11 boards, commissions, or councils or committees that I am suggesting we eliminate because they have not met for the last 5 years. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in favor? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition? Seeing none, anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. All right, Senator, we'll move on to Senate Bill 757 if you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So 757 repeals expired, terminated, sunset, and obsolete sections of the law. It is identical to HRB 1 from 2024, prepared by the Joint Committee on Legislative Research, and this is what our bipartisan commission suggests we get rid of because these laws have been overtaken and rendered obsolete by the passage of other bills. And so this massive, giant bill is just getting rid of all of our unnecessary statutes and hopefully saving a little bit of ink.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 757? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition? Seeing none, anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing none. All right, Senator, you got anything else you want to say?
Not on this bill. Thank you.
Okay, that's not on this list. Oh, I skipped it. Yeah, I missed that one. Okay. All right, we've got another one. All right.
I got a deal for you.
Wait, don't everybody leave. We got another bill. Senate Bill 720, sponsored again by Senator Coleman. I'm sorry that I missed that one, Senator. Didn't see it in the list here.
No,
Begin when you're
fine.
ready.
Thank you. Senate Bill 720 requires the Office of Administration to report annually abandoned, underutilized, in whole or part for the past 3 years, state buildings. We have real estate that is not being used. It is a drain both on maintenance costs, on insurance costs, and frankly should be turned into a more productive asset through the sale of those buildings and cost savings moving forward. So this bill authorizes the governor to convey any such property identified in that report.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Lewis.
So I might have missed it. It's only for state-owned buildings, not personal or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. No, I'm
I
not.
was-
Just because you didn't use your house, we're not going to authorize the governor to
Okay.
sell it out from under you.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Did you say how many? What do you have a visibility of what that looks like, or
No,
went
and
through the
actually,
report?
I have a little bit of a frustrating comment on that. I have been asking the Office of Administration to prepare such a list for me for the last 5 weeks, and they have yet to prepare a list to be able to bring before this committee. And so my hope is that if they're compelled by law, they will be more forthright and quick in their responsivity.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 720? Anyone here to testify in opposition? Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? All right. Unless you got another one up your sleeve, I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's all I got.
We've still got time. Madam Chair, are you going to gavel us out?
Why don't you?
Okay. I think I need a second for that, don't I? I would move that we adjourn. There's a second. The Senate Committee on Government Efficiency stands adjourned.